My hands are all clammy. What's up, you guys? This is a different kind of video. I'm a little nervous. You can maybe hear it in my throat. First of all, the title of this video. I hate clickbaity titles because I feel like it abuses the trust of the people that watch your video. So I don't want to. I first of all just want to say I'm not using the title of this video to manipulate or bait you into clicking on the video, and then 2 minutes in, I go, psych, still playing drums, smash that like button. That's not what this is. This video, the title is true. I did quit playing the drums for quite a few months. I'd say almost a year over the past 2 years, primarily because I went through like the most challenging mental health season of my entire life, where life became more difficult than it's ever really been for me. And I think many people will be able to relate to that, especially after the past 2 years of the world changing drastically and rapidly, you know? So the way that affected my life the most was basically the things that I enjoyed the most became completely non-enjoyable for me anymore. And top of that list is playing the drums. So I thought, if there can be a problem so big that it kind of steals the most enjoyable thing out of your life, that's worth discussing. And more than anything, I don't want this video to be a bummer. I don't want it to bum you out. I'm not going to spend this video talking about how sad I am. I want to spend this video talking about practical decisions that I made. Some of them are very small, but some decisions that I made that moved me forward through this season, and where I'm now in a much better place, and I feel actually more healthy and myself than ever before, but it's taken a long time to get here. I thought the best way to approach this would be through a conversation or an interview. So I asked actually the amazing Kristina if she'd be willing to do an interview, if I can ask her some questions about mental health, about enjoying drumming, about her career. And she agreed, and we had such a rad conversation. So most of this video is actually going to be based around that conversation that I had with Kristina. The full version is available for people on my Patreon page, but I'm using snippets of that in this video to kind of just like talk about some practical stuff that both Kristina and I have done to move forward in this strange life that we're all living. Quick disclaimer though, I'm not a professional, I'm not a psychologist. Neither is Kristina, as far as I know. So none of this is professional advice. This is all just personal anecdotal advice about stuff that we've tried and that's really benefited our lives positively and helped us a lot. And we're sharing that in the hopes that it might help some of you guys. To that end, one of the things that I did that helped me the most was I went to therapy for the first time. I'd never gone to therapy before. It changed my life. I'm a really big proponent of therapy now, and I used a service called BetterHelp because obviously with everything going on in the world, I didn't want to see a person face to face. So I wanted to kind of try and do it from my apartment, and I found a service called BetterHelp, and I used their service for about 3 months. It was incredibly beneficial, so much so that when I started planning this video, and I was like, I want to make this video about mental health, I actually reached out to BetterHelp and I asked them if they'd like to sponsor this video, and they agreed. So it makes me stoked to say that this video is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you don't know what it is, it's not a crisis line, it's not self-help. BetterHelp is professional therapy done securely online. So if there's something interfering with your goals or your happiness, BetterHelp will assess your needs all online and match you with your own professional licensed therapist. You can also change therapists at any time for free until you find somebody that suits you. There's a very broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's network of more than 20,000 therapists, which might not always be locally available in many areas. This service is available for clients worldwide. Once you're matched with a therapist, you can start communicating in 48 hours. You can log into your account at any time and send a message to your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule a weekly video or phone session, and you'll never have to go to a traditional waiting room like with normal therapy. I did mine right from my studio on my phone. It was super convenient. It's also more affordable than traditional therapy, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. You can get 10% off your first month of therapy if you go to betterhelp.com/Cobus. That is betterhelp.com/COBUS if you don't know how to spell my name by now, and you can get 10% off your first month of therapy and join over 2 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. Cool, that's it. Let's get into it. You ready?
I'm ready.
Fliv, are we both a little nervous right now? I feel like...
Yes,
Yeah.
I got very nervous all
Me
of a sudden.
too, for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about this. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview, by the way. I know it's... It could be sensitive subject matter, and I kind of pitched it to you that way, and I said, are you willing to have an honest conversation on camera? And you very courageously said yes. So I'm very thankful that you're here. Thank you.
Of course, I'm down for this. I think people should be talking about real life things more often, and the more people talk about it, the less scary it can be.
Yeah. I want to start with asking you kind of what's your personality type? Like, are you extroverted or introverted? Are you naturally optimistic or a bit more like a risk averse? Like, tell me a little bit about your personality type.
I am definitely a YouTuber in the sense that I'm an introvert. I'm used to being home alone all the time.
I get that.
Yeah, I would say I am more of a serious type of person. I like to have fun, but also I'm like business all the time. What else? Definitely a little obsessive compulsive when it comes to certain things.
My personality type is definitely more serious. Well, I wouldn't say serious, just more contemplative. I just think about everything all the time. Definitely a thinker. But I'm also really sensitive, which has kind of been difficult for me to come to grips with, especially as a man, you know, and like modern Western civilization. I feel like culture at the moment, or probably not just at the moment, but for a long period of time, hasn't been that fond of sensitive men, you know. So kind of for me to just like come to grips with that has been like a big thing for me too, and just kind of own it and see it as something that has lots of plus points and lots of strengths as well. But I'd say, yeah, my personality type is definitely more risk averse, trying to avoid mistakes, perfectionistic, crazy attention to detail, think about everything all the time, obsessed with meaning and purpose. So much so that if I don't understand the meaning or the purpose behind something, it's almost impossible for me to do it.
I like that though. I like that.
I prefer that. It's just difficult to maintain that to the extent that you still execute. You know, like sometimes I strategize and think so much about things and spend so much time worrying about purpose and meaning that I don't finish the thing. And so, tricky balance for sure.
I was going to say, when it comes to like an actual job perspective, that probably could get in the way a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have to actually do certain things that sometimes you might not always want to, but you have to get it done.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
I could see how that could get in the way.
Right. And we don't have bosses. And some people will be like, oh, that sounds amazing. You work for yourself. But it's like, no. There's nobody that tells me do these 10 things. Or somebody that says, oh, thanks for doing the 10 things. You're done. Go have a good evening. That never happens, you know? So it's like, if you don't do that for yourself or find a way to create some structure or follow through or execution, that's what I'm struggling with, then there is no sense of purpose, you know, because nothing's ever done. You have to find a way to do that on your own, which kind of ties into the bigger conversation about being a professional artist or a performer as a profession, you know, and how that affects mental health, how tricky it is to balance that thing. Like, a really good example. Here's a great example. Right before this interview, like I was troubleshooting for like an hour and a half trying to figure out this insane setup. And you know exactly how this goes. There's like something can go wrong. And for an hour and a half, I had to troubleshoot. And then I figured it out. And I said, I'm going to call you in 5 minutes. And I called you. And within 5 minutes of frantically trying to solve a problem, I have to get into a mental headspace where I can be on camera and have an enjoyable conversation, hopefully. And knowing that like a few 100,000 people might see this, you know?
Yeah.
And like,
it's not like, 5 minutes ago, it was just like full panic mode. And then all of a sudden you're like, action.
Exactly. And like, I feel like that's so hard to, I don't know what it's like to be a lawyer, you know? Like that's also really difficult. But then again, this is also really difficult sometimes. And it's impossible for people outside of this environment, I feel like, to understand how sometimes this is like mentally so taxing. And it takes definitely an interesting set of skills to be able to do this job, I feel like.
When I was like really in YouTube, like for 2 years straight, I think I was doing a video a week for 2 years straight. And my friends admitted that like they never saw me. I was working 12-hour days every single day.
Dang.
And then of course you burn out.
Yeah, of course. That's not sustainable, yeah.
Being in front of the camera, it's so hard because people can see right through it. When you're not in it, when you're tired, they see right through it.
That's the point. That's the whole thing for me, is that like our jobs, or I think about my job, is to give somebody a piece of content that like that makes them feel better, and not
Yeah.
worse. And like if I'm going through the most difficult time of my life, and this is why the video is titled "I Quit Playing the Drums," by the way, that's going to be the clickbaity
okay.
title, but not really clickbaity, because I did stop playing the drums because I was struggling,
Yeah.
but it's exactly what you're saying now. Like I can force myself to be on camera, but everybody knows what that looks like. It's not enjoyable to
Yeah.
watch. Our job is to be authentically happy doing what we're doing, and it's crazy when that becomes a job requirement, when happiness becomes a job requirement. Like one of our job requirements is to be actually happy and healthy,
Yes.
balanced human beings, so we can make the kind of content that make people feel better. That's crazy when you think about it,
Especially with the last, year and a half that we've had.
Oh my
that
goodness.
was I felt like I was in an alternate universe. I had to, and all of us had to pretend that everything's fine and whatever, and we're carrying on, but also everything's just on fire around
Exactly.
us. And you're just like, wait a second, we're also in this pandemic.
Right.
And I'm having a really hard time too.
Absolutely.
So yeah. We're human. We're all humans.
Seriously, I feel so validated by this conversation. We should just do this, even if we're not recording it. It's really good for me to hear that from you.
Yeah.
I told you for this, or I asked you for this interview, what would be super beneficial, I think, is just to keep things really practical and talk about practical stuff that has helped you in terms of managing better mental health as a human, and also managing mental health as a drummer, performer, artist, content creator, which is a totally different, I feel like, category.
Yeah.
So the floor is yours. I just want you to talk about the things that you do, practical stuff that you do as a human to manage your mental health, as well as a drummer and an artist.
Yeah, sure. First off, I feel like I should say, because I feel like a lot of people are scared to say this, or they think there's stigmas around this. I have been dealing with anxiety and depression since I was 13, and I'm 26 now. So
Wow.
it's majority of my life I've been dealing with this stuff.
Right.
And I've gone through so many techniques, so many self-help books, podcasts. Those always help, mainly to remind yourself that you're not alone.
Right.
There are millions of people dealing with the same exact thing that you're dealing with, and that for me makes it feel a lot less isolating and more normal. But basic things that I do in my everyday life, super simple, that it sounds dumb, is first, force yourself out of your bed. For us, especially, we work from home. No one's telling us when to start our day. I set my alarm 9:30 every single day, no matter what, even on the weekends. Then I usually sit down and I write a list. To-do lists are my life. I have so many books that have my to-do lists from over the years, and that just, honestly, writing the to-do list is sort of like a meditation for me, because I finally get to calm my brain,
Right.
genuinely get thoughts out, and I'm like, all right, let's see a manageable amount of tasks that I could accomplish today. And when you do accomplish it, checking it off or crossing it off is so satisfying. Going outside for walks is also a form of meditation for me.
Right.
Clears my head. I don't even listen to music on those. I just like to absolutely empty my brain of anything. It like turns into mush, and it's amazing. A few other things, honestly, that I do, it might be a little more particular to me, but knowing that I have bills to pay really forces me out of being either lazy or too much in my head or anything, because I'm like, okay, I need to get this done. I have a mortgage to pay. I have all this stuff to pay. So, and then honestly, the last thing, which surprises everyone always when I say this, because it's so not, I guess, what I show in my everyday life, is that when I was going through a really hard time, I was just looking for anything to believe in, and I got really into Christian worship music. I listen to it literally nonstop. It's either like Screamo on my Spotify or Christian worship music. There's no in between.
I love that.
So if you're ever in my car and I'm in charge of the radio, you don't know what you're gonna get. But I think that it's so random, right?
Give me some artists. Go back and forth. Some really intense screamo, and then some Hillsong or like whatever.
Yeah. Oh my God. First of all, I saw Hillsong at MSG, sold out at a concert. I brought my mom. I have never experienced something like that before. I was bawling my eyes out.
That sounds incredible. Yeah.
It was amazing. I'm not even crazy religious. I'm not crazy spiritual.
Right.
But there's something about that music that is just, I don't know, it calms me to the core.
It's the message of love, you're loved.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's good to be here, and there's lots to be thankful for. I think
Yeah.
a bigger conversation, I don't mean to interrupt you at all, this is so good.
No.
But just, I think a bigger conversation is just finding something to believe in, finding people to believe in you, and feeling loved and
Yes.
feeling accepted is crucially important. Nobody's here alone,
Yeah.
like we're all here together. So I totally get that.
Especially when you are in your more dark times and you're struggling, you're trying to like grab onto something. So for that, the worship music helped me.
Right.
Reading self-help books. There's my favorite book of all time. It's called You Are a Badass. So yeah, just those are just like basic things. Doesn't cost any money. Anyone could do this stuff, and it's so simple. And I actually learned a lot of those techniques from therapy, and I've been in therapy for years. So yeah, it's sort of just like a full-time job dealing with anxiety, depression, mental health stuff.
Yeah.
But also it's so rewarding because you could like really see your progress, and you can be like, oh, last year I was doing this, and this year look at me now. So I think it's really, really powerful, inspiring. I love it.
Yeah. As you were talking, you were like, it's really beneficial. They give you techniques to work on stuff. I was like, is she talking about therapy or drum lessons? Because the thing is, it's the same thing, right? Like when you're taking drum lessons, you're saying somebody else might know something that I don't know, and I'm willing to pay for them to share that knowledge with me because it's going to benefit my life forever. Like I get, if my therapist gives me a technique to deal with anxiety or depression, which he did, I have those ideas and techniques in my head forever. I'll use them forever. It's like you're investing in yourself just like you invest in yourself with learning a new skill like drumming or getting drum lessons. It's no different. You're just improving yourself.
It's very true. And like if you're a younger kid, if you don't know anything about this, there's school counselors in a lot of colleges. Colleges have also free counseling. So there's like so many different resources. BetterHelp is an amazing website to use too. So there's so many different versions that you can test out to see what works best for you.
Right. Exactly. Is that the more general mental health stuff? Is there like a separate category for different things you do in terms of like drumming and being an artist and being a musician? Or is it just like a blanket, these are the things I have to do, and it kind of encompasses health on all facets?
Mostly I just do all that stuff. But in regards to drums, I think because it's also our job, burnout is such a thing. So I will just take a break, as you did. I will not think about the drums for like sometimes even a month if I need it.
Same.
And then to get back into it, I'll either play a new artist that I either have never heard or, I don't know, just fully different style just to like wake up my brain. Or, I don't know, try to do something a little more challenging, whether it's trying to learn guitar on a song randomly, which I just did, and it was so random.
And you crushed it. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or, like creating a drum loop or something like that. Just, it's, reinstilling the creative nerves in your brain, just trying something new.
Well, I love what you said about you can see your progress. And I think that's the thing for me is like I grew up so comfortably, and I grew up in such a privileged, comfortable environment that like I was never really confronted with the darkness and the difficulty and the suffering of life, which is unavoidable. I was never really confronted with that stuff until I got to my 30s, which is crazy. And obviously I went through difficult times before that, but it was like going to college for the first time or like dropping out of college. Like it was like more normal stuff. Less people passing away or moving to a different country or going through depression or going through a pandemic, like less that kind of stuff. And like it took me a really long time to kind of get to a point in my life where I realized, oh, we get to like participate and make decisions that drastically alter our lives. And if I go for a 10-minute or 15, 20-minute run every day, that has a measurable practical effect on my happiness. Like it's a thing, it's not just an idea or something subjective. It's objective, pragmatically measurable. It makes me happier. And it's a really empowering thing to realize that you can make decisions that make things better. Like you get to participate, and choose. But it's crazy for me that it took me so long to figure that out. I feel like so many people have figured that out years ago. And here I am at 35 being like, oh, wow, this is amazing. But it's crazy. And that's kind of why for this video, I'm hoping that this helps some people get to that kind of maybe that same place where they're like, oh, I don't have to just take it, you know? I get to make healthy decisions that like benefit my life and can make it better.
Exactly. Like you are in charge. That's something people with anxiety or depression have to always remind themselves.
Right.
We are in charge of ourselves.
Having to figure it out for the first time because nobody's done this before. Everybody's winging it.
That's true. It's true. And that's why, you know, talking to other people, whether it's your friends or parents or anyone, even watching videos like this, can really help, because it definitely is a very manageable and fixable thing, which is amazing to hear because people really don't think that it is.
100%. And it's an empowering thing, you know? Like I wrote this, I might do this in more detail at the end of the video, but kind of like I had a big realization where I realized I'm here for the first time. Life is happening to me, you know? But I'm here for the first time and I'm happening to life for the first time too, you know? Like it goes both ways. Like I've never been here before. So like nobody's seen what I can do either. So it's like, you don't just have to let life happen to you and kind of just stand there and be like inundated by life and trauma and suffering. Like you get to respond and participate and you get to happen to life as well. It goes both ways. And it's very empowering to realize, oh, I'm a participant, you know? It's not just happening to me. Like I can affect the world too, for better or worse. And there's a very empowering sense that happens when people realize that their decisions are extremely powerful and can make meaningful change, you know?
Yeah, I always I preach to the choir. If you're not happy with your job, change your job.
Yes.
Like if you're not happy with something, move. Like if you don't like where you live, you can change whatever you want. You're never stuck in any situation, because you shouldn't be coasting through life. You shouldn't be like, this is okay. Like you should be enjoying your life. So you're in charge.
Yeah. The crazy thing about that is it's impossible to make somebody realize that, you know? Like if when people always go, what would you tell yourself at 16? I'm like, oh man, I have stuff I would tell myself at 16, but I could have told myself that and nothing would have changed because I wasn't in a place to like realize that. And I think that's why like it's crazy how sometimes it just takes the journey to get to that realization where it's like, oh no, I get to choose, you know? Because even with what you just said in terms of if you don't like your job, change it. That requires first and foremost self-awareness and being honest with yourself enough to be like, oh, you know what? I don't like my job. I don't enjoy my life. And that's like a difficult thing to verbalize because it's terrifying. And now that you know, the responsibility is yours to make the change. Otherwise, you know you're betraying yourself. So it's like, it requires like a certain amount of steps and nobody can rush you through that. It requires like self-awareness first and foremost. And sometimes I feel like I have to be patient as like, as we're learning these lessons slowly but surely through life.
Yeah, it's, if you're not ready to hear any of that stuff, it's not going to hit you. I feel like as bad as this can be, you sort of have to hit some version of a rock bottom.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what you're describing is you have to take your habits and kind of your system for life, the way you live life. You have to take those rules and those habits pretty much as far as they can go. And at some point, they're going to cease being effective, you know, like especially old habits like coping, like alcohol or drugs or people run to all sorts of things. I run to all sorts of things to medicate, you know, and at some point, those things stop being effective. They just stop being effective. And you have to go, well, what can I replace this with? What is healthier, you know? Yeah. And if you're either going to do that intentionally by focusing on it, or you're going to hit rock bottom. And you can choose, you know? You can choose, I'm going to see how far I can push this, but then the chances of hitting rock bottom and things falling apart is much higher. Or you can make an intentional decision now, oh, maybe I should stop eating McDonald's 5 times a week, you know? And that's literally me. That was me. And you can watch the videos that I released. You'll see that I'm a little bit larger because that was literally me for like 6 months.
See, you learn though. Like you had to go through that phase to be where you are now. So like I never, as bad as my moments are, I never regret some of the dark paths that I was in, because if I didn't go through those, I wouldn't be where I was today. And I think a lot of people, sometimes they think about their past too much, but then you also have to realize like where you are and you're genuinely winning. Like for
Yes.
me, and it's funny because watching videos of a person for years, like you don't know anything of what's going
No.
on behind the
And the
scenes.
only
Like,
thing you know is what they've chosen to show you. Like I tell
yes.
people that all the time. If you say, "Hey, Cobus, how's your hair always look so good?" It's like, bro, because I choose when I'm on camera. You know, like
Yeah.
you only see my life when I share it with you, which is like a very small portion.
Yes, I am always in pajamas every single day of my life. So
I'm wearing pajama pants right now in this moment.
me too.
Oh, I love that. That is hilarious.
But no, it's true. And I think also people like us or creators, people forget that they're human
Yeah.
and also go through human things because they could be like, hey, when's your next video? Oh, you haven't been posting. Like, how
Right.
dare you? I'm following you. I'm supporting you, all this.
Right.
And I'm just like, well, listen, having a rough time and I'll be back when I'm ready.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like one thing, I'll like open up even more about some stuff that I've gone through because I'm sure more people have gone through this. Like
Right.
for a while, one of my anxiety things was that I was physically unable to leave my house. It was like I was deathly afraid of something. I don't know what it was. And I think I didn't leave the house for like, and this has happened multiple times throughout the years. But I think one time it lasted like, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks or something. Wow. It's crazy. And after therapy and all this stuff, like my dad was like, let's just walk down the block. Like just go a block. We can come right back. You can run back if you want. And that's what I did. And you have to like take those baby steps. So like whatever you might be dealing with or something, like don't go to the extreme of the opposite. Like
Yes.
do those small steps, get those small milestones,
Right.
and celebrate those. Like for me, stepping outside, it's
Yeah.
such a stupid thing. But for me at a time, I had to like genuinely like throw a party for myself. Yeah, so I always tell people and remind them to one, look back at the past, but in a good way because look where you are now.
See how far you've come. Yeah. See how much you've accomplished.
Yeah, and to celebrate even the smallest of smallest milestones. Not even eating McDonald's one time. Big milestone. Like you cooked a meal, amazing milestone. You know, it sounds dumb, but it really, really is not.
It's such a travesty that it sounds dumb because
Yeah.
for me, it feels like the older I get, the small decisions are the only decisions. You know, that's the norm. That's the only thing that creates sustainable forward motion. These big decisions like New Year's resolutions, that stuff is never sustainable. You know,
Yep.
that's not the norm. Big decisions aren't the norm. Small decisions are the norm.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of make that the new normal. Like my friend Jake always says, if you're struggling, let's use the McDonald's example. This video is definitely not sponsored by McDonald's at this point. We're throwing a lot of shade. But he always says, if you're struggling with emotional eating and you're eating McDonald's 5 times a week, try next week eating it 4 times. You know?
Exactly.
Small improvement. And then when you do that, congratulate yourself and say, you've done great. Now next week, 3 times, you know? Small improvements that are manageable and trackable, and then celebrate them. But it's not, it doesn't have to be big. Actually, it's better if it's not big. It's better if it's small and manageable.
Yeah, because you'll actually be able to keep up with it for years to come. And that's the key. You want to keep up with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, amen. I want some water too.
I'm like, why is it so difficult to talk all of a sudden?
Because now you have to talk about yourself.
Yeah, that's it too. No, that's it. And you know what's weird about this video format even is that it's tricky for me to find the balance between Cobus, the guy on camera, who's presenting information in a way that's palatable to people, versus being very honest about mental health and struggling with it at times, you know? And I think social media just amplifies that problem so enormously, where we choose parts of our lives to hide from people, and it creates this like self-betrayal and lack of intimacy. And whether you're a content creator or not, if you're just a normal human being with an Instagram account, I feel like there's still some of those similarities where it's like society's kind of, I feel like we're creating this habit of withholding of yourself more and only sharing the good stuff, which is not a good thing, you know?
No one's going to post a picture of them stuck in bed.
Hashtag depression. That's not gonna happen.
Or on the couch or crying or something.
Celebrating my 5th McDonald's this week. What are you guys having? I'm on McFlurry number 4.
No, but seriously, like, this is such like a modern day issue that, let's say, past generations haven't had to deal with. Like, we are learning about this. Yeah, don't take social media too seriously. No. I do it too sometimes. Like, I used to look at other musicians I admire and they're like killing the game.
Yeah.
But on the back end, you know, something else is happening and you have no idea.
Even this video, people can go, oh, I didn't know Cobus struggled with that. I didn't know Kristina struggled with that. And it like illuminates life more, you know, so there's less delusion. I was actually going to ask you a question in the very beginning, which was, how do you define mental health? But I'm not going to ask you because that sounds like something Diane Sawyer would ask somebody in an interview. It's like, it's not my jam. But when I thought about my answer, I thought my answer is, it's somebody who has a healthy relationship with the truth. And because for me, I've been struggling with mental health in terms of the fact that I have lost my grip on reality at times, where I think I don't see myself like other people see me. I don't see my drumming like other people see my drumming. I don't see my life like other people see my life, you know? I see it as a way more darker, difficult, more intense thing than it actually is. And so most of my mental health decisions have involved bringing me back to seeing things for the way that they are and not deluding myself or lying to myself. Develop a healthy relationship with the truth, basically.
I think seeing the actual truth or being able to see it and opening your eyes clearly is key to actually helping yourself.
Absolutely. And processing it so much that you can be okay with it. Be like, okay, this is what things are like. You can, and in some people's case, obviously I grew up really comfortably, but in other people's case, they could have had a incredibly rough, difficult childhood, and they didn't do anything to deserve that. It happened to them, but you can go, okay, the truth is this happened to me, and if I don't deal with this healthily, then it's going to keep happening to me for the rest of my life. And then I'm going to probably do this to my kids one day. But even though it was unfair, the package that you were given, we still get to like see things for the way that they are. And only when we see them for the way that they are can we improve them, I feel like. And we have to, that's why for me, just honesty is such a simple thing to focus on. If I get confused and overwhelmed, it's like, okay, am I being honest with myself? Am I deluding myself? Am I avoiding something I should be dealing with? And usually it's not that complicated to be like, oh, that's the thing I'm not dealing with. So let me get courageous and brave enough to actually deal with that thing and move forward and be a healthy human instead of running to McDonald's, you know?
Honestly, a lot of times it is such a simple solution. But when you're in that state of mind, you're not thinking clearly. So a thing in therapy that I learned was when you're thinking clearly, write down certain tasks or
that's money.
Things that can, you know, occupy yourself. So when you are in that state, it's already written down. It's going to give you those ideas right away because you're not thinking clearly.
For me, that feels like we are all different people at different times. You know, there's like happy Cobus, there's depressed Cobus, there's Cobus that's struggling. And that perspective to each of them feels like it's all there is. You know, if you're having a depressed day, it's like there's nothing outside of the box. That's all you can't see outside of the box. And one of the most effective ways I've found, and I just want to, this is all just agreeing with you, is journaling when you feel terrible and journaling when you feel great, and realizing that both pass, you know, and both change and both exist. So when you're depressed, it's like, no, it's a matter of time, usually before things tend to get better. And I'm not talking about chronic depression, obviously. That's a totally different category. I don't want to be flippant about it. Like some people suffer from depression to the extent that it's not a decision away to change it. You know, it's like chronic. And I'm not saying depression is a decision. It's not a decision. For some people, it's a life of difficulty. But I still think it's when you write down the good times, it's very beneficial to be reminded of that other version of yourself that also exists, you know, and maybe just needs some help to come into the fray a bit more. But yeah, journaling is one of the things I wrote down. Actually, I'm just going to read through my list for you and see.
I was just going to ask you, actually, what do you do like in your daily life or something?
Okay, now let me hit you up with some of these things that I wrote down. But many of them are very similar to what you did. So I'm just going to go through the list. So I have like tips for life and then tips for drums. Oh yeah, I wrote down, before I mention any of these things that have helped me out, I want to say, be aware of your own response to these things, because none of these are new answers, you know? I feel like people always ask the question, what do you do to better your mental health, and they're like expecting a new answer. But the answers, I feel like, so I wrote down basic maintenance for me is physical exercise, enough sleep, and healthy food. Like those three things are non-negotiable. So if I feel sad, I go, okay, cool. Have I slept enough? No. Cool. So do not evaluate how you feel until you slept better. Then you can make a new evaluation. But until that's changed, have to change that. Same for food and same for physical exercise. And it can be like go for a 10-minute walk. But why I said people want new answers is because this was the same for me when I was really struggling with depression, especially. I would read articles, and I went to therapy, which was a life changer for me. But I would read articles, and they would sometimes say these things, and I would just glance over it. Probably like people watching this video just going, yeah, physical exercise and sleep and that stuff. Okay, whatever. Because the thing is, these things are asking you to change, you know?
Yeah.
That's why people don't like old answers. They want new answers that might not ask them to change. But these things might ask of you to change, like especially if you become aware of it. Now it's your responsibility because you're responsible for the quality of your life. And that's not a great feeling, you know? Like nobody likes that feeling. So I just want to say that if I say these things and something in you kick against it, that's the most human thing imaginable. But you can't get out of a situation that bad habits got you into with the same bad habits. Something has to change. And then I wrote, if those things seem impossible, that totally makes sense, but you can make small changes. So like for physical exercise, go for a 10-minute walk. You don't have to go and work out for an hour. Start small. Actually, don't do that. That wouldn't be a good decision, because if you haven't been working out
right off the bat, don't do that.
No. Ease yourself in. Build the habit first. It's way more about the habit than it is about the intensity. Enough sleep. Sleep half an hour more, you know, or get up half an hour earlier, go to bed half an hour earlier at night. Just small changes in terms of healthy food, one healthy meal a day, or to start eating an apple a day or something. Something small and manageable, you know? And then other stuff like one level deeper, more kind of personal maintenance would be having a morning routine. For me, that's huge. So reading, journaling, and meditating in the morning, and not touching my phone for the first hour of the day. So I put my phone, that's another one, not having my phone in my room. Spending less time on my phone in general makes me happier. But when I wake up in the morning for the first hour, at least I'll read, not a lot, maybe like 10 or 15 pages, drink my coffee, and then just meditate for like 10 or 15 minutes. Just do mindfulness meditation. Another one is reading. Like I've been reading tons of books. I feel like one thing that you said, Kristina, was that you're not alone. If somebody's struggling with depression, it's so easy, or just mental health in general, it's so easy to feel like you're the only one that's dealing with this problem.
Yeah.
And I think what reading has helped me with is, like, billions of people have lived before us, you know, and billions will live after us. And people have struggled with the same problems for so long and figured a lot of it out and written a lot of it down. And you can cash in on that information if you just read. And it reminds me that I don't have to like figure this life out on my own. I'm not the first one. There are other people, smarter people who figured it out, you know? And so some books that have really helped me is Atomic Habits. It's a great book by James Clear. The Highly Sensitive Person. It's a bit more applicable to me, I guess, than more other people.
Love that.
And then the third one is just a memoir. It's Blue Like Jazz by Donald Miller. It's just like light, easy reading, and just makes me feel understood and like I'm part of the world. So reading for me is another huge one. I feel like if I'm honest with myself, most of the moments where I was most unhappy in the past year was with my phone in my hand. You know, when I'm either like doom scrolling because I'm just like trying to find a distraction, or if I'm comparing my life to other people's lives, or if I'm reminiscing about the past. I feel like so much of my unhappiness was looking at my phone. And so the less time I spend on my phone, the happier I am. That's just me. It might not be everybody.
I firmly agree with that too. Yeah, I think even like posting less, even if it is your job, technically it's our job. I don't post that much anymore.
Yeah, same.
Because you shouldn't always be wondering what other people are thinking about you in one sense, and just take a step back. And yeah, the comparing to others was
Absolutely.
a big thing for me too. So
yeah.
Take a step back. It feels good.
And it reminds me of, this is something I kind of put at the end of the list, but I'll just mention it now, is find ways to become excited about your own life. And as opposed to being, like you said, comparing yourself to other people's lives, looking at the rich and the famous, people you aspire to. It's like, what helped me a lot in terms of mental health is like getting stoked about my life and the opportunities that I have and how incredibly fortunate I am and the people I have around me, my health. There's an infinite list of things to be thankful for. And I feel like if you're on your phone, that the way we consume, especially social media, is not designed to make you stoked about your life at all. Like, it's not the purpose of it. It's designed to do something entirely different. And I feel like comparison is way more captivating than optimism. You know, like if you can get people in like a negative spiral of comparison, they're going to scroll for much longer than if they're in a happy, satisfied state. And I think it's important for me to become very aware of like my relationship with my phone and lessen that as much as possible. And that has had a huge effect. Another thing that I do is I actually set a 5-minute timer. Like when I pick up my phone, I'll go to timer and set a 5-minute timer. And then I tell myself, you can do whatever you want. You can go to Instagram, mindless, mind-numbing scrolling. But when the timer goes off, you either have to put your phone down or do something productive. So I give myself like 5 minutes. And the reason why I do that is because 5 minutes is usually enough to be like, oh, I got my kick, you know? But if you don't have the timer, then I'll just go for like half an hour or an hour. And I'm like, where did the time go? I just lost an hour for nothing.
Yeah. And like one small tip for that, the timer thing is a great idea. Another small tip could be, which I used to do because it's like, it's annoying enough that you won't want to get back on super fast, signing yourself out without having like the auto refill thing. Or deleting the app. So literally every time you want to sign on,
I've done that too, yeah.
3 times a day, 1,000,000 times a day, you're going to have to keep re-adding it, deleting it. It just you have to make it a little annoying for you. Or inconvenient for you to not want to be on it all the time.
Absolutely. It's like in Atomic Habits, that book that I was referencing, James Clear talks about making healthy habits more immediately rewarding. So focusing on ways to make them more rewarding so you want to do them more, and to the stuff that you don't want to do, make them more cumbersome and more difficult and less rewarding. And the timer for me, especially logging out and deleting the app, that makes it substantially less rewarding. I feel like that's a really good strategy to lessen time on the phone. Something else I do is measure or track your happiness. So like if I use a heart rate monitor when I go and work out and I see how many calories I've burnt or how far I've ran or walked, that's very motivating for me because I can measure it. And I also use this app called Dailyo, which is every day you just tell it how happy you are on a scale from 1 to 5, and you list the activities that you did. And you can create your own activities. And so basically it allows you to see how certain activities affect your happiness. So if I eat fast food today, it increases my happiness, I think by 5 or 7%, but the next day it lessens my happiness by like 30%. The next day I feel terrible. And so it's difficult to remember that stuff if you don't measure it. So for me, like trying to measure my happiness is very effective at like kind of staying self-aware. And then second category, tips for like drums and art or just being a musician, artist. Something that I wrote down that really helps that a lot is finding an entirely unrelated hobby.
Yes.
Something that has nothing to do with drums. I'm so curious to hear if you have one of these. But for me, it's like building PCs. I'm a mega nerd.
Oh, okay.
Huge nerd. Love it. Like, I love it. And also photography, like film photography. I've gotten into film photography, bought like a rad little Canon AE1 program camera and gotten into film photography. And then when I shot my first reel, I was like, I wonder how difficult it would be to develop film. So I just started like developing my own film and I'm obsessed. It's one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done in my entire life.
I love that.
It's so rad. And it's like, I do that for a day and I'm so happy. And the next day I just want to play drums again because I'm so like filled up. So I would say it's good to find habits or hobbies rather that have nothing to do with your main profession, but are just as enjoyable. Like that's so important for my mental health.
A big one for me is hiking, like in the middle of the woods.
Same. It's
amazing.
Max.
Love it. I like playing pool. I have a pool table in my house.
Dope.
My friends make fun of me. I like doing like puzzles or like Sudoku or math equations randomly because I don't know, it's just calming to like be able to solve these problems. And I also really enjoy like building things or doing yard work, like I have a giant yard.
Something
I like
with your
mowing
hands?
the lawn, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
It's so simple, but it's very, very enjoyable. And you could, you accomplish a task at the end and you get to see what you made.
And feel productive. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then the last one is just something I need to do in terms of my practical approach to the drum set is to ask myself, do I need to have more self-discipline or less? In other words, should I raise the stakes or the pressure on myself? Even you saying, Kristina, like, I have bills to pay, I have a mortgage. Like, in that book, The Highly Sensitive Person, the author talks about an optimal level of arousal, which means that if you're overstimulated and you're overwhelmed, you can't really be productive or do good work because you're too overwhelmed. And if you're not stimulated enough, nothing seems interesting or engaging enough to really complete the work. So everybody has that like optimal level of arousal where, like, for me, it's coffee, music, go for a quick 10-minute walk, then I'm ready for like business emails, but it has to get me into that space. And I think it's really important to stay aware of that. Like, do you need to add more pressure to yourself or less? And as it relates to drumming, sometimes if I'm just getting to burnout, it's because I'm taking it too seriously. And it's like, take the pressure off. Just play along to cheesy pop songs for a week, Don't work on technique at all. Just enjoy it again like a 16-year-old. And manage the amount of pressure you put on yourself and be aware of it. If you are only doing it as a hobbyist and you're starting to burn out, don't take it so seriously. It's just a hobby. It's good to progress. It's good to proceed. But if it's just fun, arguably, I'd say that's better than doing it professionally. So just stay aware of kind of how much pressure or little pressure you're putting on yourself and adjust accordingly. So that's kind of my list in terms of dealing with like struggles, mental health struggles, and trying to find healthy, practical ways to get out of it. I'm so thankful for the stuff that you shared.
I think the more people are talking about things, the easier it is to accept that you're going through it. And whether it's, I don't know, let's say you look up to us on YouTube and all of a sudden you see us dealing with the same thing that you are dealing with. I hope that lets you know that you're not alone. Yes. And it's leveling the playing ground and we're all the same. And like, follow some of these tips. They're super easy tips. They don't cost any money.
Right.
They don't even take that much time to do. You just have to build up those habits, and then it's genuinely going to change your life for the better. So yeah.
I want to tag on to what you just said in terms of people seeing us and maybe looking up to us. Kristina, you too. If people think we're these like we're like destined to have these jobs because we're so strong, it's like no. We've just like had to deal with what came with this job, just like everybody does that in any job, so it's like nothing disqualifies you from doing this. There are skills you can learn, there are ways to get better at life, there are things you can acquire, and that's empowering when you realize that. And I really hope this video in some way helps people realize that they get to choose. We've just solved the world's problems, Kristina. We did it. No, we really didn't. We really didn't. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm just hoping that like, even if one or two of these points made somebody go, like maybe let me try that and see if it affects things. That would make me so happy. I know this video probably won't get the views of a drum cover, but just like, it makes me happy knowing that this is another part of our lives that we've experienced, me for 15 years now. And it's something I don't talk about often, but I think it's really valuable and meaningful to share that kind of information, especially if it could help people. So Kristina, thank you so much for being, I don't want to sound all official because you're my friend, but I just wanted to, on video, on camera, thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable and honest and sharing very valuable information with potentially many people. I'm really thankful. Thank you.
I really appreciated the invite. So
of course.
Thank you.
Anytime. Let's just do this more often, even if we don't film it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, please.
I'll just fade it out while we do this. There goes the fade. Cool. That's the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, or skipping all the way to the end. I feel like maybe you did that too. That's also possible. Regardless, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I know this video is way different than my usual content, but if this helps even one person, I'd be so stoked. If there's anything that you've done, decisions you've made, or things you've tried that's helped you get through difficult seasons or through difficult times, please type it in the comments below if you feel comfortable enough to do that. I would love to get a discussion started around this, especially as it relates to being musicians and artists and drummers. I feel like that's kind of an interesting lane that we're all in. Please be kind to each other in the comments. Internet comments can sometimes be an interesting place, and I would love it if this community of people that watch my videos help each other, and if we're a community that help and support each other rather than break each other down, that would be awesome. Thank you so much again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. If you want to get that 10% off your first month of therapy, just go to betterhelp.com/Cobus. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.